it will be there. So whenever, but that doesn't record with the video. So it would be just only the background things floating around.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
As usual.
so what is this Mahātaṇhāsaṅkhayasutta actually talks about is, he talks about two kinds of consciousness. One consciousness which is dependently originated, and another consciousness which that always there. So he calls that as Viññānam Anidassanam Anantam Sabbatotabam. Okay, so here in this sutta, you get a perfect clarity on what's the consciousness is all about. Okay, so the first thing we need to understand is, what do we mean by conscious about? What are we conscious? So when we say, oh, you know what, I'm aware, I'm conscious about. So here he explains. In one of that he says, he gives an example. How should you see consciousness? So he says that, let's say there is a wood and there is a chaff and there is a paper, there is rubbish and all of that. Then when you burn it, you call that as a created out of wood and created out of chaff, or created out of twig and created out of paper, created out of garbage and all that. But actually it's just consciousness which is arising due to condition. So this person who has a wrong view that, you know, that this consciousness keeps on moving from one to another, one body to another body, and it is the same one, and then it has the good deeds and bad deeds. So for that reason, Buddha asks that person, can you tell me what consciousness you're trying to talk about? And then he says that the consciousness what I'm talking about is something which goes from birth to birth. So his name is Sati, and he starts to talk about it. So he is stuck with his view that it is the same one which keeps on moving. So he says that it's the same consciousness that roams and transmigrates, not another. So he says that, what's that consciousness you're talking about? But he knows for sure there are two consciousnesses. Okay, so this consciousness is what he explains here, but the real consciousness what we are trying to talk about, which gets confused, is this Viññānam Anidassanam Anantam Sabbatotabam. So what it really means is that consciousness, Anidasana means undirected, whereas this consciousness is directed, meaning it's directed towards an object. Let's say sight and the object, it's directed towards it. So connection is there. So the consciousness that arises due to a condition, that is the sight and the object, is called as consciousness created through sight. Supposing I don't have that. So now the question comes, how do I see consciousness? That's the basic question, right? So what he says is that just take it like a fire arising. So he gives that example here in this Mahātaṇhāsaṅkhayasutta. So basically it's a light. So when I say a light can be a light can be a real sun kind of a thing. So we can consider, oh, just like sunlight falls on everything. So that is the one which is anidasana. That is, it's not directed to any individual or any object. It just falls uniformly on everything, from plants to animals to floor to whatever, on the river, on the lakes and all that. It doesn't have any distinction to say that, oh, you know what, I'm falling on so and so person. Oh, I like this, so no, you know, I don't like that. All that is not there. I think you're trying to hunt the place to sit.
No, I'm just getting some water.
Okay, okay. It was seeming to me that you're not happy with wherever you're sitting, so you're trying to move around to see that what's the best place to sit.
No, I'm good. I'm just thirsty.
Okay, enjoy your water, and then I will speak.
Yeah, I'm done.
That's okay. Take it. Okay, now we're back. Okay. So this is condition that is unconditioned, meaning the sun is unconditioned. But if I bring a torch, okay, and then the same light which is there in the sun, the same light, I bring it and then I put it in the room. So I can call it as light arriving in the room due to the condition, right? And then I switch off that light and I go to the kitchen and then I switch on that light, and then the light is created out of the condition in the kitchen. So I can call that as kitchen light, and this I can call it as a living room light, and I can call it as a bedroom light and all that. And then it arises and passes away. This is where we can see the anicca nature in that. So we got the light. Nobody can say there was no light, and nobody can say there was light also, because it arises due to condition and it departed due to the condition not being there. So this is where the sankhata or the conditionality works. So the Buddha teaching here is that when the light comes in, it brings that structure to it, a structure of a human and a structure of an animal, structure of a bird, structure of an insect, structure of a tree, structure of a plant, structure of whatever. Just like structure of building and structure of road, structure of everything comes into existence when the light illumines that. If there was no light illumining it, then neither we can understand any structure. In the same way, this body has light, but it is covered by this body itself, meaning we cannot see. But we also know there's something called as aura. I think you would have heard about that.
Yes.
So why you and I cannot see the aura right now is because we are gross. The mind has become extremely gross. It cannot really see anything. It can only sense gross objects. But if we are able to get the subtlety out of it, then the solidity keeps on reducing, showing the light. So basically the aura, the color, what we have, that gets covered up by this bhuta. So he calls that as bhuta. And the problem is there is no English translation of that bhuta. Okay, so he asked a question, and then in English when I read what has been indicated, so he says, Bhutamidanti bhikkave passatati. And the English translation what has made is that, Medicants, do you see this has come to be? So now it became this. So I will never come to know what is the whole, after this, the whole sutta, because I have not understand what is this. I just read and I cannot understand what it's all about. So now the bhuta we have to understand. Bhuta means which is condensed to showcase something, meaning just like the earth element, water element, air element, fire element coming together. So right now this body structure is the bhuta. You are a bhuta. The question comes, how did it arrive? What were the cause and the condition for it to arrive? So the chakku, eye, and the object were connected through this light, and then it arrived. The ear and the sound were connected, and then it arrived. How was it connected? The light connected it. Just for at a very gross level to understand that, okay, there's something called light, right? So now how do I know there is light? Why not something else? And then we can refer it back to moon and sun. So most of the suttas talks about sun and the moon, just to say that whatever light is coming is the light of consciousness, because it's making you conscious. If there was no light, you possibly cannot see anything. If there is no sound coming, you cannot hear anything. If there is no taste coming in, you cannot. If there is nothing to eat, then you cannot taste anything. So you cannot. If there's nothing to touch, you cannot feel anything. So for all of this to come is this light. Just like the easiest example I can give you is electricity in everything. You don't have an electricity as electricity, right? You cannot see it. But what you can possibly see is the spark which comes, right? So when we bring wire together and just the spark, just like the lightning. So there's no difference between this and that, because it's just a spark. So when it connects, just like the lightning strikes and then it creates a sound. So if somebody were to say, how did the sound come? It's because of the air. And how did the air come? Oh, it's an element. Nothing you can do about it. And how did the light enter into that? Well, when the clouds come together, the ionization happens, and then it creates an electrical field, and then there's a spark. Similarly, on the same grounds, he says, if a fire that is dependent on the rubbish, okay, and you light a fire, how is the fire created? So now it is manifested, unmanifested. Is the fire there already? Yes, it's there. But I don't see it because the conditions are not there for the light to come, or the spark, or the fire to come. Now what I do is I bring two things together and rub. Even if I were to bring two of my hands together, there's a burning sensation. It means that there's fire already inside. But if both the hands were not brought together, then there's no fire. Similarly, if there was a matchbox and a matchstick separated out, there's no fire. But if you were to scratch it, then the spark. That means the anidasanam, undirected, is already there. When you rub something and then the fire comes. Similarly, the sight and the object are separate, anatta. When the proper time comes, when you rub it, the fire comes, it gets connected. So now I can say this I and the object are connected. So now I can say it's I consciousness. Okay. But the problem with this consciousness is that as soon as the sight is removed, it's switched off. Unless another object is seen. Another object is seen. Another object is seen. Just like the sound, and another sound is heard. Another taste is tasted, something like that. So he says that this is conditioned. This is not unconditioned. So he asks here, do you see that it has come into existence because of the fuel? What's the fuel here? There's a food. So if there is a food, it's going to burn. As long as the food exists, it's going to burn. So as long as the sight is there, the eye is there, and something to be seen is there, the connection is there. As soon as that either the eye is removed, or the seeing is removed, or the object is removed, and then there's nothing to see. As far as the sound is being heard in the ear, and it is connected because of the sound, then there's something which is happening. If there was no sound, or the person could not hear, so then it doesn't light up.
So quick question. So I think we're talking probably exactly what's mentioned in the Chakka Sutta, where the
Yes.
Chaturanga Vijnana arises because of the Chakku and the Rupa.
Right.
And-
Go ahead. Correct.
And then there's contact. I suppose the universal consciousness is what makes the contact possible.
Yes.
And when it's there, the Chakku Vijnana arises. And then when it moves on to the next thing, and so the hearing consciousness arises. So it's like electricity going to different places.
Exactly. And then it is called as electricity driving the computer, electricity driving the motor, electricity driving the car, electricity driving whatever. So now we have so many, right? So all those are something like that. So now the experience. What should I experience? Experience is like light. That's the reason I wanted to speak to you. This we have read, this we have understood, but we have not experienced it. So to experience it, in this sutta, I really understood what he's trying to say. How does it come? How do you see light? Oh, sorry, how do you see fire? You're seeing the fire out of fuel. If you remove the fuel, there's no fire. So basically, that gives answer to all the 6 consciousness, what it speaks about in Sankhara Pachaya Vijnana. The avidya here is the bhuta. That means the Prithvi element, Apo, Vayu, Tejo and Vayu element not being seen as a bhuta. Instead of seeing as a bhuta, I am seeing it as a human being or an animal or a plant or something like that. And because of that, there are sankharas. That is willful intention of what to do with that. And because of that comes 6 types of vijnana, which is that lighting through the matchstick. And because of that, I call it something. The nama rupa starts. One is a nama and another one is a rupa. So when I talk about the nama, it is the Vedana Khanda. That is what I'm feeling. Your feeling is different, my feeling is different. So I feel, oh wow, what a nice girl. Oh wow, what a nice computer. Oh wow, that wow factor is the one which is created in the consciousness. That light, right? So now when I see or hear, taste, touch, smell, whatever, or thought, I am having that. And once I create that is Nama Rupa, so Vedana Khanda, and then Sanya, that is perception. I'm perceiving it as the most beautiful thing or the most ugly thing or whatever it is. And
sorry, quick question to interrupt.
Yeah.
So the Chakku Vijnana would also arise even for the Arhat, right?
Yes.
Because the contact can still. So I guess I'm asking Sankhara Pachaya Vijnana. So Vijnana can arise even if you're not making.
Yes, absolutely. See, the thing is, you're not naming it.
Oh, okay.
See now, if we go step-by-step approach, so first is the avidya. So I have not seen the 4 elements.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is the bhuta. So I'm seeing it as a human being or an animal or a plant or this or that. I'm categorizing, right? So the moment I categorize it, I will do the respective sankhara. So 3 sankharas can be done. I will be doing a punyabhi sankhara, that is, I do a good deed intentionally. Apunyabhi sankhara is the bad deed intentionally, with intentions. And aninjabhi sankhara, which is nothing but getting into the meditative trance, which I again do it to enjoy that pleasure. Okay. So there are 2 kinds of pleasure. One is the sensual pleasure and one is the out of sense pleasure. Sensual pleasure are the one which he calls in the Mahāsaṭipatthana Sutta Samisa Sukha. That is, it is mixed, meaning it's not really Sukha, but we call it as Sukha. So Niramisa Sukha is the one which is untainted, which is coming out of Aninjabi Sankhara. So when you are in first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, like that. But for both of them, I'm doing Sankhara. Now in this particular case of an Arhat, what happens? He knows that it has 4 elements. There's no doubt. He sees only the light behind, the consciousness which is behind doing it. So the Digga Nikaya, what I had said, D and 2, he talks about the Samanya Phala Sutta. That means what a ascetic gets as a fruit from contemplation in this life itself. It's a huge one. In that, in 2 or 3, he explains what he is trying to say. So he says that I see that there's a garland and there is a ruby which is cut so nice and shining everywhere. But this string is holding it. The string is made out of 4 elements: Pathavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. That string is holding that ruby. What if I only take the ruby and don't take this 4? And that is the consciousness which is pure and bright. The same one he talks when he gives an exposition to Pukkasati in that what is that? Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta. Again, he says to him that considering there's a goldsmith and then he is doing a goldsmith job and he is burning all the gold, and then he sees that shine. And that is what it is. That is the consciousness. So he explains Vijnana Dhatu. It's pure and bright. So in 3 instances, he talks about what is consciousness. One here, one in Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta, and another one is the DN2, which is the Samanya Phala Sutta. So if you see, he gives different examples, but the meaning is the same. It is bright. Right? So now, how do I consider brightness? So I hear in this sutta, he talks about the fire. Right. So if my mind is as pure as just the fire, then I can see what food I'm putting there. So he talks about 4 kinds of food. One is the food through the material food. Second one is the Phassa Ahara, which is the contact through which the Vedana, the feeling, is met. Then the third one is Mano Sanchetana Ahara, that is mentally created. Like, wow, it's so nice, and that is mentally created. And the Vijnana Ahara is about naming and formation. So, name and form. So basically, if I am an Arhat, if I am not an Arhat, I see the 4 elements as a human being. And if I am an Arhat or understood even Anagami level, then I have clarity that, oh, this is not a human being, it's just a 4 element which is coming out of the food what I am eating. So the body is growing based upon the food I am eating. It's not that it is just coming as is. So I can see it in the plant. I can see it in the animals. I can see it in the bird. I can see it in the insects. I can see it anywhere. It's the same. Process is the same. So the mud is there. The seed is there. The consciousness comes and it starts to grow. There is no green color. There is no red color. There is no white color. There is nothing colored there. But the color, the tree or the creeper or the plant takes it based upon what the intrinsic quality it has. But consciousness does not distinguish that, oh, this is a tree and that is a human being. It gives the same fuel to both. Same light to both of them for it to function. And that's the light.
It doesn't mean that plants have sensations, right? Or
no,
like
the only difference between the plant and human is that plant doesn't have perception ability and it doesn't have the sense of I.
Oh, so it has senses.
It will sense. If you really want to try it, you just go near a plant and start loving it, and you see that it will come near you.
Interesting.
You choose any plant, any tree, any plant, you hug it. Every day you have to do is that if you really want to try it out at your home, if you have in a backyard something which you like, you have to come with a deep sense of compassion towards that and then hug it. If you have a tree, okay, just hug it and do as you do it to your son. Do it for a few days. And next time when you go near, you will feel that something is touching you.
Interesting.
It feels, but it doesn't have a perception. It is a living entity. The only difference is that there's no mind as such. It cannot make out anything. Out of the field. Go ahead.
I guess I was just asking for like non-killing. Is killing a plant some kind of killing because it has?
No, he says that that is not in the same sutta, DN2. He explains spoiling the seed is bad. Spoiling a plant is bad. He gives all of that.
Oh, okay.
And he says this is meant for ascetics only. It's not meant for the lay followers.
Oh.
He says if you're already getting food from the lay follower, you should not harm a plant. Okay.
Makes sense.
But it is there, so it is better to read DN2. It is interesting, and all your question, what you asked, is true. Yes, it has life. Anything that has life is you're injuring the plant or killing the plant is a blunder. But the karmic fruit is not as strong as killing a human being. What would happen, I'll tell you. So let's say I go to the plant or creeper and I want to eat it. I'll just pull it and eat it. I will have indigestion. That's all what will happen. Nothing more is going to happen to me. Or I get some disease. Like I get diarrhea, vomiting, indigestion, flatulence, and all of that, right? So now what I do is, I go to the plant and I do like this, holding both of my hand, and I say, you are the giver of the food. Without you, I will not survive. I need some food. Please don't take it like a cognizance that I'm doing something. Please grant me food. And I pick it up. The same plant, the same seed, when going inside, will not cause any complication. It only, the energy goes, not anything about the plant.
I see.
Okay. Now this is how we can really adopt or engage ourselves in the Buddha Dhamma, because it really makes you moral.
Yes.
Okay. And your heart, and you can immediately feel your heart expands when you do that. And when you just pull up the plant and do something, your heart contracts. Then and there, it just contracts. It doesn't expand. It contracts. But we don't really give a damn to that. But if you really observe, when you do this and say that, hey, you know what, you're giving me this nice food. Okay, thank you so much. Without you, I wouldn't have been alive today. And you are the giver of the food. So that expands.
Sorry. So you're saying that the plant have feeling. It has some perception, but it doesn't have a perception of I.
It doesn't have a perception of I. And two is that it cannot make out anything what you're trying to do.
Okay.
Okay. The least of all the consciousness is the stone and the mud. Now you ask me how. Have you read about entropy and enthalpy? Law of thermodynamics?
I only know entropy. I just heard entropy in your previous talk.
Now you have to study really 4 laws of thermodynamics. That will give you the answer. You know what happens, Aryu? Atoms come together, right?
Yeah.
They're not supposed to come together. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Only due to special causes they come together.
Like pressure.
Whatever. Now the pressure also doesn't come together. There should be something else.
Okay.
And that in our language of science is called as energy.
I see.
And in Buddha language it is called as vijnana.
Okay.
Now that we can call it as consciousness. Now what is this consciousness and what is this consciousness what we have? And that consciousness has, if you really try pulverizing the stone and if you measure the energy what it creates, there is an energy which gets dissipated. So if it's just a stone, no energy would have got dissipated. Because it has come together, there is an energy. It means it is holding it together. So what is missing in that? There is no life as such. So Buddha calls it as a jivita indriya. That is missing. Which can light itself up is not there. So it is least of the thing. Meaning if I am taking a stone. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm bothering my wife a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we fired her. It's okay.
Okay, so I think you need to put your headphones or something like that.
My headphone is not working for some reason. Let me give it another shot.
I mean, she's not able to sleep.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, it's choking today for whatever reason. It's okay, we can continue. I just turned the volume down. It's okay.
Okay, so you can still hear me.
I can still hear you.
Oh,
Yes.
great. So the stones and the mud and everything, what we have, including rivers and all that, has an energy system, energy layer. So energy and matter, they both are linking and delinking, and that is what entropy and enthalpy is all about.
I see.
The ability to actually move from one state to another is what entropy is all about. Okay, so if we were to actually see what would happens or what really should happen, there is conservation of energy, meaning energy is there, matter is there. When they come together, they form a particular force. But the original nature of energy is to stay as energy and matter as matter. So the energy can never be produced nor destroyed. The matter can never be produced nor destroyed. So the second law of thermodynamics says that the entropy of any isolated system always increases. That means it keeps on increasing the heat and it dissipates. Like in our case, the body, when the time of inception to the time of death of that individual, it keeps on growing, it keeps on increasing, it doesn't reduce. So the person...
Yeah, my shallow understanding of entropy is that it becomes more chaotic, it becomes more...
Yes, absolutely. That is the chaos.
More, like order becomes diluted by disorder, basically.
Absolutely. The whole universe is in disorder. Your body is in disorder. It seemed to be ordered because of enthalpy, not because of entropy.
Right.
In enthalpy, you're bringing everything together. So there's a force. But the original way of looking is to dissipate. It should go into disorder.
Yeah.
Right. So the atoms seem to be shaking up in a particular sequence because of the energy being there. But if the energy is removed, they just collapse. Right?
I see.
Same thing with the human body. You remove the consciousness, what happens?
The body dissipates.
No. Even if the person is not dead, let's say he has gone into unconsciousness, what happens? Body just falls down. Body cannot just stand on its own. Right? Even a minute of unconsciousness is not dead. A minute of unconsciousness, what happens to the human body? It just falls. So that is entropy. it is, then what happened at that moment? It became disordered. It is no longer ordered.
Makes sense.
Right. So the body's ability, so the entropy is going from hot to cold. Then only it can create disorder. Otherwise, it's ordered. Ordered is heat. Disordered is cool. So if you take a cup of tea, what happens? The tea becomes cold. It cannot retain the heat. Right?
Yes.
Food, can you retain the heat? No. Body, can you retain heat? No. And that's the reason you have to wear a sweater or something like that. And in the animals, they have fur to retain the heat. That means something external has to be put in place for the heat not to dissipate. If the heat dissipates, the energy is gone. If the energy is gone, that being doesn't exist.
So I guess the Big Bang is the most extreme case of the energy being injected. Then it cools down. Then it goes another cycle.
Yes. So there is this zeroth law of thermodynamics, which is what consciousness, pure consciousness is all. So it is called thermal equilibrium. This is what is called as equanimity. Upekha. Okay. There is just stasis temperature. So it maintains the equilibrium throughout. Meaning when I see something and I have not reacted to liking it and disliking it, then I have come into the zeroth law of thermodynamics.
Interesting.
Okay, now you can connect science with spirituality. Simple.
Yeah, learning both at the same time.
Yeah. So when the first law of thermodynamics works, it works on law of conservation of energy. That means that matter remains as matter. That is, Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu remains as that. And the energy, which is consciousness, remains as it. But when they meet, creates tremendous heat. So the second law of thermodynamics is the sum of entropies. That is, the sum of everything interacting in this thermodynamic system never decreases. So the heat does not spontaneously pass from a colder body to a warmer body. It takes time before that happens. So the third law of thermodynamics says that as the system's entropy approaches, temperature itself goes to zero, which is equanimity. And when it goes to zero, it dissipates. Meaning, it goes out of universe. Meaning, it goes out of its operation. So what it really means, that is what Nibbana is all about. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to cool down, right? That's what every site of Dhamma says. Calm down, cool down, don't increase the heat. The more heat is increased, your body gets adopted to that heat. So let's say I am angry, more and more angry. Then I go to the hell realm of existence because that is the place where it is most suited. If I am more cool, more calm, more happy, more contented, then this physical body transforms itself into Deva or a Brahma or whatever it is. Because I'm having compassion, I'm having loving kindness, and I'm having equanimity, and I'm having that joy attitude for myself and for others. That means what I'm doing, I am not creating entropy. I'm accepting to entropy. Meaning it just dissipates. It keeps on becoming cool. So nature law is what? To become cool. But I'm going against. I'm heating things up. So when I heat things up, what should happen? As long as I supply the fuel, it is going to remain. So Buddha Dhamma also tells the same thing. As long as you keep on supplying the fuel, the fire exists. You remove the fuel, there's no fire. Now, you remove the entropy, the entropy is the state. It goes into equilibrium. Okay.
That's the universal consciousness.
Yes.
Care specifically about entropy, or does it increase the heat or the
Zero. Z equals 0. That means it doesn't do anything. It is there.
Okay.
Okay. Now it is there in a rock, it is there in a plant, it is there in a human, it is there in animal, it is there in everything. But now what I do is, I bring in this enthalpy. I'll give external force. External force through sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, and thoughts. So now the consciousness is direct. So once it directs, it creates the atomic combustion. So I start liking something, even though there is nothing to like there or dislike there. And this is how the raga, dvesha, moha starts, basically. Because these are the effluents or asavas or fermentation or whatever we want to call. And that can be called as avidya asava and ditya asava, this asava, that asava. But basically what it really means is that we have certain colors which are coming in front of us, in front of the consciousness. Right? The matter is seen as though it has some importance, or is seen as though there is no importance. Both happens. If there is no importance, it becomes neutral, but that is avidya. So either I like the object or I dislike the object. I don't know. There is something called as neither liking nor disliking. At that moment, the value of z equals 0. Why? Because it's maintained the equilibrium. Status quo is maintained. See, if I see someone and then I have not known that person, and I'll just stand there. I don't do anything. So there is no energy consumed. If you go by the thermodynamics principle.
Yes.
Second law says that it normally it goes towards the coolness, but you can't assume the coolness will happen automatically. It will, from the cold body, it cannot go to hot. Meaning, if you are not reacting to anything, another person cannot come and hit you in any way. See, if I were to get into argument with you, or you, that what I need to do, I need to first create the heat. Then looking at that heat, you are going to argue with me. What if I don't have heat? What will you argue with me?
Yeah, well, maybe I perceive the lack of heat in you as something that makes me angry, and I want to argue with.
So there are two things, right? So now the energy here, the heat, what I'm creating is distrust or frustration or aggression or something which irritates you, right? The way my voice is, or my the way my body language is, the way my eyes are, the way my ears are. So you are going to look at all of that. So when I am frustrated, or you with your whatever you're trying to say to me, that my ears becomes red. Everybody's ears become red, even though they are dark skinned. And the eyes becomes red. Nose extends itself, and his lips becomes brighter and thick, and then there is blood flowing everywhere in his body, and he starts to sweat, he or she. So you can see that person and say that, now what has happened? He is getting heated up. So he is putting what? Enthalpy to maintain that state.
Yes.
Very soon he gets exhausted of it, right? Now, if you are a Dhamma follower, would you add more fuel to fire, or will you just remove the fire?
Remove it.
That's all what you'll be doing. So you will just say that, okay, he's angry with me. Okay, fine. Let me find the cause for his anger.
Yes.
What happened? Now you wanted something, juice?
No, I need power now. I need entropy for my computer.
Entropy, not entropy.
Yeah. I need entropy for my computer right now.
Yes.
Sorry for the technical difficulty.
No worries, I have no problems at all.
Yeah, I guess watching the breath or something like breathing relax is the best way to cool down.
Yes.
Because it removes the...
So the whole idea is forgetting about entropy, enthalpy and all that words. What are we trying to achieve? Is that I am also made out of atoms, you are also made out of atoms, everything is made out of atoms, right? And it is also made out of molecules. So coming together, dissipating is the function. That is what he says, anicca, arising and passing away. Holding to the view that I am going to keep it in one particular place is foolishness, because it creates dukkha. It just heats you up, nothing else.
Yes.
And everything is anatta, because it's useless. You cannot keep the atoms together. Yes, you can keep it for some time, but it changes. So there is going to be a viparinama dukkha. That means it's going to change without your notice. It can become anything. You can't say that no, it will only become this thing. Right? So the energy does not change, matter does not change, but the combination changes.
Yeah.
So the originally you cannot create and destroy anything. So it says very clearly, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. Matter can never be created nor destroyed. Only the force of energy and matter and coming together and saying it as computer, this is a human being, this is an animal, this is bird, this is a plant, and this is stone, and this is a mountain, this is a valley, this is a river, this is a stream, and this is that, this is this, and all that. But basically, if we were to step back and see what's happening, is that it's just matter merging with energy. So that gives E is equal to mc square.
I see.
So this is the 4 laws of thermodynamics. So the original choice is to become equilibrium, equanimous, tranquil. Original choice of whom? The consciousness. Due to special factors. What are the special factors? This matter coming in touch with energy merges and becomes a structure. But the idea of the structure is to land up in chaos. And how it is going to end up in chaos, we don't know, but it is going to enter into chaos. That means from ordered, it always becomes unordered. Why? Because its nature is to become from hot to cold. And that nature is called a Dhamma. So Nivima means similar, means become cool. So Nibbana is what? Unbinding. That is, don't bind with matter. So you see the light in everywhere now, because there's nothing like you, because it's only the matter and the energy coming together. Now you have understood that matter can never be held. Only through force you can hold it. So what's the force? Force is the ahara, which is the food. So you're giving morning breakfast, afternoon lunch, evening dinner, supper, all of that. Then you are giving contact as the food. I contact this, I contact that, and that creates the consciousness to create an I and that object, hear sound and that ear, taste and that, all of that, right? So that is what the contact will do, due to senses touching the object, so that it powers up. But if I apply entropy, it cools down. So as soon as the object is removed, that is gone, right? So then, mano sanchetana ahara, this is where the mind is. The plant doesn't have a mind. Animal to bacteria to everything has a mind, but the mind is not developed like a human, which can take all the 6 senses together and make something out of it. So that means human mind is much elevated, can create anything, because it has the power to power up everything. In the animal space, or in the in the bird space, or in the insect space, that 5 senses don't have equal amount of energy storage and retrieval. It has only less.
But even animals can have nama rupa, right? Because it can perceive.
Yes. Everything is same. But how they perceive it is different.
Okay.
See, no animal will create its own methodology in saying that how to liberate.
Yeah.
Right? Only humans know how to do it. They know how to create, how to sustain, and how to destroy. They know all the 3. Animals don't know how to create. You just look at it this way. You see human versus bird or animal, let's say. Bird have been constructing nest in the same way from time immemorial. Has any human being created the same home everywhere? No. Have you seen any animal creating a bridge to cross?
I haven't seen it, but I heard some animal can be somewhat intelligent.
Correct, somewhat intelligent, but can it match the skill of a human who can construct skyscrapers, he can construct airplanes, he can construct so many things?
No.
Now, if it sees water, what it does? Either it will bark at if it is a dog, it will start barking at that water, seeing its own reflection. It thinks that another dog is standing in front of it. First thing. Second, it wants to cross, so it jumps into the water. Have you seen any human being jumping into the water?
No.
No. He will first do one thing. He will put a stone and see how depth through the sound. And he will put it in the center, not in the beginning nor in the end. He will put that stone in the center. Okay, and he will measure, or he will bring a long stick and then put it inside to see how much is the height. And then he'll search for log of woods, and he knows wood will float. Nobody has come and told him, look, wood will float. He has found it out for himself. Animal, including elephant, even though they are huge, they get into the water. They don't know whether a crocodile is waiting for it. They don't know what animal is there down below or whatever. They just go on rampage. Human being know very clearly that any animal can be there inside. I should cross safely. So what he does, he'll put a log of wood and he will wait. Because of that sound, either the animals will go away or he will be able to see the animals, like crocodile or whatever it is. Intelligently, he crosses over. Right? So, intelligence is there in human. Absolutely. Why? Because he is able to use all the 5 senses. All animals, birds, everything has five senses. but they don't have the way to understand that. So we are in that way have understood the universe in a much better way than those creatures. So coming back to this, is that when we can create something like this, that is when the mano sanchetana ahara is. So we are able to create everything in the mind. Right from software development to anything, including all relationships, countries, whatever has been created, is created out of mano sanchetana ahara. That is the food for the mind. Then the vijnana, this is the fun part. This is the energy. Now I am using energy to power up each one of these. So I can power up the sight, power up the sound, power up the taste, touch, smell, thoughts. So what Buddha says is that understand the reality. Reality, if you really understand, is that you're either going towards the raga or you're going towards dvesha. Cut that. You do the same thing, but don't do anything of connecting it in a wrong way, expecting that something is going to happen to you. If you were to do it, then you are creating unnecessary problem for yourself. So there he explains what is the reason. So he asks here, he asked 4 questions. Okay, he says, Kim nidana, kim samudaya, kim jatika, kim pabhava. So I will tell you what it really means is kim nidana. What is the origin of this? Okay, so what is the origin of this light? Why it really came into existence? The sight and the object. Why it came into existence? Kim samudaya, that is how did it dependently arise? Kim jatika, what is its nature of birth? How it really comes to be? And kim prabhava or pabhava in Pali. What really it means that how this one develops. So he says that, okay, how it is happened? He says because of the craving. So if the sight, like we were talking about the arhat, I see something here and I know it is 4 elements, so there is no craving. If I see something here and I have this Bose speakers in front of me and then my mind says that is Bose, so it is not kabalinka ahara, that is physical food. It is phassa ahara because it has touched. My eyes are touching that speaker. So I know it is a speaker. So it is a mano sanchetana ahara, which is created out of mind. And then the vijnana ahara, because that itself is saying that this is a beautiful thing, this is an ugly thing. So if we understand light, what I spoke about, and if we understand craving, you will understand the whole Dhamma. So the light is coming into existence because of condition. Anything that comes into condition will go away. So that means it has arising and passing nature, just like entropy, enthalpy, what we spoke about. I mean, you cannot hold it. And holding it is dukkha. Whether it is called as a wife or a husband or a son or a daughter or a computer or as a speaker or as whatever, or as an office or as a job or as a career or whatever we want to call. All of that is created. So if something is created, it's liable to get destroyed. So the entropy is, it turns cold. So you have to put in a lot of effort to maintain the condition, and you cannot maintain condition forever because the condition keeps on changing. So what do we understand now? We understand that situation creates conditions and conditions are dependently originated. So now when I am on dependencies, that dependence origination, I am going to end up in dukkha. Why? Because my condition keeps on changing. Now currently the condition in the world is corona. Tomorrow something else. The day after tomorrow something else. So we are going to have this challenging moment because it's not affecting me, it is affecting the body. But I am considering myself as the body. That is, the situation is such that I am considering myself as the body. That is, the consciousness considers itself as the body. And because it considers itself as the body, that is kaya, and then the touch, pottabha. It's considered itself as itself. And then when the mind considers itself as itself, then what it happens? It gets into fear because it's going to go away. So what I should do? I should sit at home, not going anywhere outside. That's the only way I can protect myself and my family from this COVID in Bangalore presently. Because so many people are infected here, so we have no idea, and so many hospitals are overflowing with people and fear. Fear creates anxiety. Anxiety creates frustration. Frustration creates helplessness. And that's exactly what he says. He says, jati, jara, marana, soka, parideva, dukkha, domanasa, upayasa, sambhavanti. So that means, if I start holding on to something as true, when it cannot be held at all, because it arises and passes away, then the dukkha is the only truth, because I'm holding on to it. So entropy by nature goes away, but because of enthalpy, I think I can do something about it. So now, if I want to stop the infection myself, what I should do is follow the process. What's the process? Wear the mask, take care of your hands and nose and mouth and whatever. Don't put anything in your these things. That means take a sanitizer, maintain social distancing, take vaccine. Process. Don't take it as a person, it's a process. Follow the process. It might so happen that you will not get it. But mentally meditating that what if, that means I'm creating the enough energy for it to attack or embrace me. Because I'm always thinking on that. I'm always pondering on that. And this is called as papancha sanya sankha. That means you create a world of your own and start calibrating, debating, and provoking oneself and creating stories and imagination. All that ultimately suffer out of it.
And you end up attracting what you are concerned about the most.
Yes, and you're attracting something which will automatically attract because it is creating that energy inside. So the atoms are supposed to dissipate and fall. I'm creating more and more and more and more energy to make that into a bhuta, which is what he's saying here. He's saying that, have you seen the bhuta? And everybody says, yes, I've seen it. And that's exactly what we are doing. We are creating a bhuta. That is, we are creating the elements to join together to make a form of virus. Because it is collective consciousness. So everybody in the world today talks only about that subject. So what happens? It creates by itself. So if we were not to have it, what we should do? Just drop it off. It just drops off. Anything in this world, any inventions like what Steve Jobs did about Apple, he had a thorough vision. He could convince people that iPod will work, iPad will work, this will work, that will work, and he convinced, no, I'm sure. And as the many people started joining and then joining, so it became like a conscious, it created enthalpy, but it cannot be sustained. So you have to keep on innovating, coming up with new iPad model and iPhone model and then a watch model and this model, that model. But you cannot keep that only one thing. That's not possible. Similarly, here in spiritual, you don't have to hold anything because that's a normal process. This you have to put pressure. That you don't have to put any pressure. You are cooling down. You're cooling up everything. That means matter will stay as matter. And the consciousness stays itself as consciousness. So then there is no problem. You are now liberated. You become arhat because you are not naming and forming anything out of it. Just like I name something, this is this and that is that. So only for speaking to somebody, I will use the name and form, but not internalize. What I mean to say is that I know you are Aryu. So whenever I see you, even if I become an arhat, I'm going to say Aryu. I'm not going to say, hey, I don't understand who you are. No. I will still say Aryu. But I don't have likes, dislikes. I don't have any opinions either. That, you are this, and last time you told me that, and this time you told me. No, nothing like that. Whatever you say to me right now is what it is. It's not about going back. So, in the Sabbasava Sutta, Buddha explains that Dasanena Pahatabba. Some people will go to the past. So what I was in the past, and how was in the past, and what I'm going to become, what did I become in the past. Then they come to the future. How was I in the future? How I'm going to be in the future, what I will be in the future, and all that. And then he will come to the present, what I'm in the present, who am I in the present, and all of that. As consciousness, you neither have a past, nor you have present, nor you have future. Because it just arises. And when it arises as light, nothing else.
Yeah, I think you really put things together in like a very nice way. But I guess going back to your original point about experiencing it yourself.
Yep.
Sorry, I stopped you from going to that direction. So is there anything you want to say about experiencing it, the light for yourself?
Yeah, so what you need to do is you need to do two things. One, like what Buddha explains, is to visualize. So in the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta and this Sutta, what I'm talking about, and the other Sutta you can look at is Mahātaṇhāsaṅkhayasutta is what I'm talking about. And then if you go to that DN2, that is the Samanyapala Sutta. Okay, any suttas which gives clarity on consciousness, if you go to that, you first, what you have to do is remember that you are light. Brightest of the brightest you can ever think. So if you're seeing sun, and if you say that that's my light, and you just consider that's the brightest of it. Now you have to look at the attributes of sun, what it does for you. One, it heats up, or rather it warms, right? If you want warmth, you just see what happens. People staying in cold countries want warmth. What they do? They'll go in search of fire, or they go in search of sun, right? Now, it gives life. Sun gives life. How? All vegetations, if you remove sun, there won't be any vegetation at all. So what it proves? That sunlight has life.
Yes.
So what it tells you, that since you are made out of the sun, meaning your body resonates with sun, you can consider the light itself as life. If you contemplate on that, you get a wow moment. I got it. You will see your whole body radiating with bright light. Not as an imagination.
But you mentioned this light doesn't have heat, right? This light of consciousness doesn't have heat.
It doesn't have heat. It has only warmth. It just makes you feel so light, so warm, and so secure. Just like a child is held by the mother, and the child feels so secure in the warmth of the mother. Similarly, you will feel the warmth of your own consciousness. In that moment, what happens? The sixth consciousness drops off. What I mean to say is, I only uttered 2 lines of that Vinyanam Anidassanam Anantam Sabbato Pabam Yatta Patavi Cha Apo Cha Tejo na Vayo na Gadati. That means when the Prithvi, that is the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element don't get established. That means when I see a person, if I am not establishing it as anything other than the four elements and just the light, yattha dhigam cha rasam cha anunathulam subha ashubham. That means dhiga means dhiga is long, rasa is short, anu means atomic, thula means fat, shubha ashubham means that one which is very auspicious and inauspicious. So if I am going by dualities like this, yatta namancha rupancha asesam uparujjati. That means when I remove the name and the form completely without residue. Vinyanasa nirodhena. That is this vinyana, these 6 vinyanas which are coming and going like the fire what we spoke about. That is, if it is a wood fire and a cloth fire and a paper fire and a garbage fire, if I am able to remove that, ettesam uparujjati, that means you only are left with the pure bright light. And also in another sutta he talks about pabasaram idam chittam. Pabasaram means glowing light. Idam chittam. Chitta is the consciousness. So the consciousness is always shining, brightest. And he says Pabhasara is the brightest. And he asks Ananda question, which of the light is the brightest? He gives him 3. Is it the sun, Surya, Chandima, that is moon, then the Panya, which is wisdom. And then another says, obviously, the wisdom. Now, what is the wisdom about? Wisdom is that light which you see in everything. You are not seeing as an individual person. You are seeing everything as you. You will happen in Sotapanna, but here you are really seeing everything as that consciousness, that lighting consciousness. And when you see that, you feel the warmth, that security comes, that, oh, I am not dying, because I was neither born, so I cannot die. So the fuel is gone. So the whole concept of this sutta, Mahātaṇhāsaṅkhayasutta, you are removing the tanha itself, that is the craving. If the craving is removed, everything is removed. So there is nothing left. So coming to the basic question, again I come to this question, is that how to practice? First remember that you are pabhasaram idam chittam, which is the brightest of the light, which is the consciousness. Or you can take vinyanam anidassanam anantam sabbato pavam. You can take whichever of these two, but make it as the brightest in your mind. So you have to sit and you can say that I'm the brightest. Okay. It will slightly be at intellectual level, but then it increases your knowledge automatically. Then at some point, you will feel that wow feeling, because you're really seeing it. It's not that you're imagining it. You now know, you have experienced that light. Once one glimpse of that experience will change your whole dimension for you, because now you know what is real and unreal. And you also know that everything is arising in that light and passing away in that light. So what I mean to say, I'll tell you. Just like I enter into the room and the room has light and everything is there in that light, right? So it came into existence because of that light. If there was no light, I cannot see anything. As I switch off the light, what happens? Those disappear till the light comes back. So this is what the other consciousness is all about. Other consciousness is 6 consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness. But the actual consciousness, if you really see, the material has always been there. So the problem is, do I exist or don't I exist? There is no answer. There is no direct answer to say that, yeah, you exist. If you say you exist, that means you were not existing earlier. Now you exist. It's just like somebody switching on the light and saying that, does this room exist? Yes, it does, till the light is there. If you switch off the light, no room exists. And you may say, what crazy? How can that happen? Just because I switch off the light, does that mean that the room doesn't exist? Now to answer to that, you have to put yourself a question. When you sleep, does the room exist? No. Does the family exist? No. Does your career exist? No. But do you exist? No. Does the consciousness exist? Yes. Do you know the consciousness exists? No. This is that one. Which one? Vinyanam anidassanam anantam sabbato papam. It is there everywhere. When everybody goes to sleep, they don't know they're sleeping. In that, does Pathavi exist? No. Does Apo exist? No. Does Tejo exist? No. Vayu exist? No. 4 elements don't exist. Now, does tall exist? No. Short exist? No. Fat exist? No. Atomic person exist? No. Auspiciousness exist? No. Inauspicious exist? No. Nama exists, the naming of everything? No. Rupa exists? No. And this is called nothingness. Okay. If you get into the 7th jhana, it is nothingness. Akinchayatan. You'll read, literally you are in sleep. But you are totally awake, but there is nothing to experience. It just cuts the experience and the experiencer. Just like deep sleep. There is no experiencer and the experienced. That is not there. That's removed. Purged away. And then the 8th jhana. What's the 8th jhana? Neither perception and non-perception. Meaning, when you are in deep sleep, are you perceiving anything? No. Are you not perceiving anything? You can't say. So if you go to the 8th jhana, this is what you're going to experience. Beautiful experience. Where you cannot say, I am symbolizing something, and you cannot say, I was not symbolizing something. The 9th jhana, Sanya Vedaita Nirodha. What does that mean? Is you're just seeing the light. There's no feeling of the light. It's just there. Okay. The warmth is there. That's all. There's nothing to perceive. This is called as warmth. No. Okay. Now, is there a feeling? No. There's no feeling. What's there to feel? There's nothing to feel. Feeling is the one which is coming out of touch. There's nothing to touch, so there's nothing to feel. Meaning, there's no phassa to have a Vedana. Then with Vedana only there is Tanha. So then there is no feeling, there is no Tanha. If there is no Tanha, then there is no Upadana. Then there is no Upadana, there is no Bhava. If there is no Bhava, there is no Jati. If there is no Jati, there is no Jara, Marana, Soka, Parideva and all that. So
nothingness, the past already gone, right? Because there's nothing to perceive.
Yes. So there's nothing to perceive and there's nothing to feel. So without feeling and perception, what it really means in a normal waking life, I'm perceiving you to the extent of 4 elements and not as Aryu. Just to talk, right? Just to talk and say that, hey Aryu, how are you doing? It's just a sound which is passing by. It's not that Aryu is going to do something. Now when Aryu, what does he do? Hey Aryu, how are you doing? It's the sound which is coming through my mouth, enters into his ear. It doesn't enter Aryu. It enters into his ear. And the sound is vibrated in his ear. And the consciousness picks up that vibration. And the mind processes it and says that, here is Vilas. Okay? Now if the mind is attached, it says Vilas is good, Vilas is bad. Arhat doesn't feel good or bad. Vilas is Vilas, Aryu is Aryu, 4 elements is 4 element, 4 element is 4. Consciousness is pure and bright. How is Aryu able to listen? Because of the consciousness. How is Vilas able to talk? Is because of consciousness. If consciousness were to be removed from both, neither they can talk, nor they can do anything.
So you said there are 2 things you can do. The first is to visualize the light.
Yes.
What is the second thing?
When you do that, visualization of light, then you recognize what is coming in the light. This is what that awareness meditation is all about, the Satipatthana is all about. So in the Satipatthana Sutta, he says that when you're breathing long and breathing short, if I take myself breathing long, breathing short, I will never get it. You should see as an observer. You're observing something is going up and something going down, not you are going up and you are going down. In that light. The second.
So it's the second step. It's the second step after seeing the light.
Yes, after visualizing the light. Because if you see why it works, I'll tell you, Arif, all the inventions, all the things what we have developed is through visualization.
Yes, yes.
So this also will work because of the same thing. See, nobody knew computer, right? Somebody visualized it.
Yes, yes.
Somebody had an idea. That idea was visualized, right? It was not anything else other than visualization.
You can say it's attracted in a way.
Yes. So when I visualize, second step I'm going to do is to recognize that that I am the conscious. This is just a consciousness, and in that what is appearing. So what is appearing in the consciousness? If I were to look it on my breath itself, in the consciousness, the breath is appearing and disappearing. Make yourself as a light, and then you can see it automatically appears as a process. It appears and disappears, appears and disappears. As you see the appearance and disappearance, if you were to do Anapanasati, it becomes very light. Breath becomes immediately very light. So it becomes Dhiga, that is deep, and Rasa, small, long and short, and short, and short. And then it stops. Passam bhayam kaya sankharam, asasi sameti sikkati, passam bhayam kaya sankharam, passasi sameti sikkati. Sikkati means just to learn. So what he does is that he watches, mind goes somewhere, he picks up the mind, and in that light, mind is there, breath is there. Mind is going up, going down, going up, going down. Then it calms down. The mind calms down and the body calms down. And then the mind and body both have calmed down, breath disappears. Now what is left? Only the light is left. So what you started with? Light. What did you get? Light. So in 16 steps of Anapanasati, you will get the entire thing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I also just have a question of the relationship between seeing the light and seeing the deathless. Is it related or
yes,
the same
it is related.
thing?
It is related, and I didn't want to cover up that now because that is going to become literally confusing. So I want you to first focus on this light.
Yes.
Come to
Yes.
your own experiential understanding, and then we can talk about deathless, because that is directly linked to that. That Nibbana, once you experience, you will almost get everything as clear.
So even with like my quick experiment when you're talking and I was just trying to visualize the bright light, I think just within that like half a minute or so, like I think your voice become more distant.
Yes.
So to speak. It's almost like it's no longer as direct as your sound. It becomes like something like an object rather than something that's so real.
Yes.
I think it creates a distance by by that visualization.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Good.
Well,
So you're really picked up.
Yes, I will try that. This is fantastic.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah, we have spoken for 1 hour 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Have a good night's sleep and enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Vilas. This is yeah. I'll need a lot of time to absorb it. It's a world changing view. Very nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Enjoy then.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Good night. Good night. Bye.